When they said the series is about self-love, they really meant it, huh? Welcome to Ame Talk About Stuff, where we talk about stuff with Ame. So this would be my first episode, I think, and yeah. So today we're going to talk about a series that I recently watched. It's called Loki. You guys must have, heard about it. And we're going to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, then go watch it. What are you doing here? But if you don't, you don't care or you don't mind about spoilers, then feel free to join in. And honestly, I wasn't a Loki fan before I watched the series. I mean, I do get the appeal of Loki as a dark, brooding character with family issues, trust issues, and then the guy who feels like an outcast in his own society. I guess we can all relate to him up to a certain point. He's a layered character, that's for sure. Besides Killmonger and Thanos, I think Loki is one of the most compelling villains that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has to offer. I mean, like, his betrayal and manipulation and deception were just getting old and boring on me. Even Thor, his brother, acknowledges this.
I'm probably better off staying here on Sakaar.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Did you just agree with me?
Come on, this place is perfect for you. It's savage, chaotic, lawless. Brother, you can do great here.
Do you truly think so little of me?
Loki, I thought the world of you. I thought we were gonna fight side by side forever, but at the end of the day, you're you and I'm me. And I know maybe there's still good in you, but let's be honest, our paths diverged a long time ago.
Like, Loki will always try to betray and backstab him in every chance possible. And this would go on and on and on. But he did grow out of all that eventually by the end of Thor Ragnarok, but only for him to meet his untimely end by Thanos. So we weren't able to see what a changed Loki would look like. Yeah, I guess the Marvel Universe just doesn't like Loki becoming anything else besides a bad guy. But, I guess that Kevin Feige has a moment where he's like, damn, we gained $2 billion from Batman game movie, huh? Isn't that something? What else can we do after this? Wait, didn't we left a Loki in Endgame? Fans love Loki. That means we can still milk this. Hey, it pays off because by the end of the series, I have grown to love and sympathize with Loki so much, and that I don't want anything to hurt this man again. Okay, so Loki isn't the first series to be streamed on the Disney Plus platform. The first Marvel show to be streamed on the Disney Plus platform would be WandaVision, and the second one was The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Both are really solid series in my opinion, and I recommend you guys to watch it. And now with Loki, I realized something, having watched all these series, is that with the Disney Plus platform, it gave Marvel the opportunity to experiment more with their storytellings. For example, with WandaVision, it was like a psychological sitcom. Yeah, you heard me right. It's like a psychological sitcom. And The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a political thriller. This means that the characters and the stories can do more weird and wacky and even serious things which might not be so suitable on the big screen. This also means a more character-driven plot, which I am absolutely fine with them doing because it is the character itself which makes the MCU very much enjoyable and unique. If Marvel intends to use the Disney Plus platform to tell some engaging stories that have a massive impact on the Marvel Universe overall, then I guess they should be congratulated because taking such a risk and being ready to experiment more. One thing that people have been complaining about the MCU is that it plays too safe and has no risk in the end. Like, the hero would win and the villain would lose. They're sort of forgettable. Not all of them, but some. By ensuring that Marvel can come up with new original experience that have an impact on the whole MCU, Disney Plus will become a more appealing to those interested in these superhero characters. And the MCU will become more diverse as more voices will be included in this creative process. Should open my specs. They're really annoying. I can't see for shit. Now, is that better? I guess so. So the MCU has been going on for almost 10 years. So that means that people are engaged with what the characters and the stories that they are telling here. But, you know, it wouldn't hurt Marvel if they try something new now and then. So here comes Loki, a series that is brave enough to change the Marvel formula a bit. We're no longer following a hero in the traditional sense, aren't we? I mean, yes, Loki in a way has the charm and personality of a hero, I guess, but he has done some fucked up shit. Like invading Earth perhaps at one time and betraying his family and people. So I wouldn't say him is a hero necessarily, but he doesn't see himself that. He could potentially justify his action as necessary because everyone is a hero in their own story. Okay, so the series takes an interesting route by raising questions about Loki's previous actions. So the show asks Loki himself why he does what he does. So here we are with 6 episodes of the series to ask that question. So these 6 episodes works like a 4.5 hour long movie, which basically explore Loki's character and psyche even more deeply. So the series follows Loki, an egotistical maniac who believes his only purpose is to ascend, and I quote here, God King, which means he feels compelled to rule over everything and everyone. I mean, we've all seen Endgame, right? That movie got like $2 billion, so I guess we've all seen it. Anyway, after the Battle of New York, and you know, Loki has been defeated, he had escaped the Avengers because of the Hulk smashing Tony's face with a door because of he hates stairs, and leaving him with the Tesseract. So after leaving Loki with the Tesseract, he escaped with it, but not long after that, the TVA finds him, and the TVA is basically the Time Variant Authority, which says that they work to maintain or to secure the proper flow of time as set by the so-called timekeepers. So by escaping, Loki himself has become a variant, and a variant is a person who isn't supposed to do what they did according to the original timeline, and are supposed to be destroyed or pruned, as what the TVA called. But after being captured by the TVA, Loki was asked to help Mobius, an analyst. Why can't I say the word analyst? And never mind. So Mobius asked Loki to help him tracking down a dangerous variant of himself, of Loki. And this variant, as we found out, is actually a woman variant of Loki who wants to tear down the TVA because the TVA has wronged her in a lot of ways, and chaos ensues. So that's basically the general premise of the series, I think. Now that we've gone through the basic plot of the series, I'd like to show you what this series really shines at, and that is breaking down the persona of Loki and what he represents. And this was achieved really early on in the series by exposing what lies ahead on Loki's ultimate purpose. This was done by literally showing Loki his life ahead of him. So Mobius in the series shows Loki what his life could have been in the original timeline. This is how, I guess, you give Loki character development without giving him any character development. People might think that by only displaying this could be lazy screenwriting or cheating. I have to disagree, because Loki, after seeing all that, doesn't necessarily develop immediately. He realizes that his ambition of controlling everyone is not as desirable as he imagined. So now, his goal is to work for the TVA for the time being, because he views that the TVA is the next greater power, and that he can try to deceive and manipulate. So he isn't a changed Loki yet. It was compelling enough because it was unique to see how Loki would react, looking at like what lies ahead in front of him if he continues this route. But soon after Loki meets the variant that he was supposed to chase after for the TVA, that's where things get interesting. First of all, the variant wants to be called as Sylvie rather than a Loki, and we don't know why that is. Maybe that would be explored in a future season, maybe. But anyway, Sylvie, on the other hand, is the complete polar opposite of Loki. Loki thinks himself as more subtle, while Sylvie is more brute force. Sylvie is the kind of person who would punch first before asking questions. So, completely different personalities. After meeting with Sylvie, that's where I would say Loki first changes his character. That's where he gets the spark to change, or the inspiration to change. Sorry about that. Loki's change of heart does not seem abrupt or out of character for me, because since it is very integrated into the plot as well as the interaction that Loki has with the side characters, by having all those interaction, it helps Loki to grow and develop as a person. And we all know that Loki has never been evil out of spite. He has even stated that he does not enjoy hurting others. He does it because he has no other choice. He feels that by inflicting pain on others, he would create the impression that he is all powerful, while in fact, he is a terrified, scared little boy. At first, Loki is confused as to why Sylvie, a Loki variant like himself, is hell-bent in destroying the TVA rather than controlling it from the inside, because that's what Loki would do. But after knowing what Sylvie had gone through all her life, he now realizes that Sylvie isn't really the bad guy here. It's actually the TVA, because it was the TVA who had taken away Sylvie's timeline only when she was just a child. So of course, Sylvie is going to have some resentment towards the TVA. So for me, the twist that the TVA were actually the antagonists of the series was a fun twist. I know we all can debate whether what the TVA do is actually good or bad, but ruining Sylvie's timeline was enough for her to turn against and antagonize the TVA. So having Sylvie by Loki's side, Loki is able to see things from a newer perspective. Essentially, the TVA is taking away people's rights to free will, and Loki sees that, but he lacks the motivation to change anything, because as mentioned, Loki is there at first to rule rather than to change any of the status quo. So Sylvie is a crucial part in shaping our Loki's mentality and worldview. Loki realizes that years of treachery and deception have failed to help him be satisfied with his life or to achieve any of his ultimate goals. This was later revealed in the series when Loki met a few other variants of himself and learned that they all betray and deceive. Even in alternate timelines, they all do the same thing, that is to lie and manipulate. In contrast, our Loki, after meeting Sylvie, is able to see past that. So with this newfound confidence and realization, Loki is able to change his perspective as well as character. And he could even inspire the other Loki variants to believe in themselves and to even work together and trust each other. Loki is able to show them that they have a more larger part to play in this universe rather than just to become the god of mischief who only lies and cheat all their life. We meet another Loki variant, a classic variant of Loki played by Richard E. Grant, who I love, by the way. He's so great in this. He's a more older, more experienced Loki. He is also inspired by the relationship that Loki and Sylvie had. Their relationship shows that Lokis are capable of trusting and working together. He found himself the courage to sacrifice himself for a better purpose than only himself. And it was a great scene, by the way, where he conjured up Asgard from nothing to distract Alioth from Sylvie and Loki so that they both can enchant him. Is it a him? Anyway, that scene is one of the best scenes in this series, I would say. And yeah, it's not only glorious, I mean, like, in terms of its spectacle and technicalities, but it shows the underlying theme that Loki's can change. Not only that, but Loki recognizes himself in her, seeing the same rage and fury that he had before joining the TVA and meeting her. Except he now understands that Sylvie's past would only end up with her being in regret and misery. And that is why I think that the relationship between Loki and Sylvie is really special. And I think it is one of the key points that this series is trying to convey, that Loki are capable of trust and self-love. Loki and Sylvie are both there to heal each other in a way, because as we seen earlier, both characters are pretty much broken people. So having them together in a relationship, it shows that they are on the path of healing what have been broken between them. And for Loki, that is the ability to trust. This is what we call character development, folks. This is very important for the writers to show how much our Loki has changed throughout the whole series. Even after what both characters have gone through, Sylvie still dreams of revenge and killing the timekeepers, as well as we've seen in the last episode, that there are a bigger villain behind the TVA, and he is called He Who Remains. And basically this is the guy that has been running the whole show, the whole circus, and he is played by Jonathan Majors. He is a really good actor, and you guys should check him out in Love County, I don't know, but Google it. Sylvie is not capable of change yet, because she has not gone through the same development as our Loki has. Because by the last episode, Loki tells us that his priority and his purpose has changed. What he wants now is to make sure Sylvie is okay, rather than to have a throne, rather than to control everyone and everything. All he wants is to make sure that the person he cares the most is okay. And I felt that that's like super touching for me. Honestly, that was such a great line. Like, ugh. So I see this as an act of self-love for Loki. No, not in the literal sense, more in the mythological, more in the storytelling sense. Because with Sylvie and Loki, they both started to accept who they are as a person by caring for each other. And that's what I meant by having self-love. If you think that both characters are the same person who shares the same genetics, then do they share the same genetics with Alligator Loki? Do they share the same genetics with Kid Loki? If you think about it, no, they're not. So it isn't self-cess, because self-cess doesn't exist. This is fiction, and this is how the storytellers wants to portray or convey the act of self-love. You guys have to think about it sometimes. I genuinely felt their relationship, their romantic relationship, more than that sibling rivalry that TikTok has been stating. I didn't see that. Anyway, by the end of the series, their relationship is tested by He Who Remains. This is the person that Sylvie wanted to kill. He Who Remains tells them both what is the implication by murdering him, that they could start the multiversal war again, and more variants of him could come back later. That makes Loki think about it, because Loki isn't driven by revenge, Sylvie is. So the one person that he needs to convince is her. But unfortunately, Sylvie doesn't see that way. Sylvie doesn't see that Loki is trying to help her. Loki is trying not for her to go through the same trauma, hurt and pain that Loki has gone through all his life. Sylvie sees this as an act of betrayal. At the end of the day, Sylvie has not gone through the character development that Loki has. So she is not able to trust Loki fully, but Loki does. And Loki shows that. It's painful to see that both characters are in pain. They both thought that they are there to kill the person who has been the cause for all this pain and misery. So when they fight each other, I can see the pain that they both are feeling for each other. both feeling betrayed by each other, which I guess shows how complex their relationship is. And Loki said it best that Sylvie is not able to trust, and Loki himself cannot be trusted. Oof. So yeah, but I do hope that both Loki and Sylvie are able to reunite at some point. And because Sylvie's story is as important as Loki, and as we saw, the last thing Sylvie did is killing the He Who Remains, and I don't think she is satisfied with that. So yeah, my expectation is both meet each other, and also for Mobius to get on a jet ski. I believe Loki is a better person as a result of Sylvie. And no, I'm not downplaying Loki's own journey. I'm simply saying that when you meet someone and they have such an impact on you, you feel the need to change. And it doesn't mean that you have to, but it's something that it naturally comes. Dear Marvel, don't be an ass by fridging Sylvie, by killing off Sylvie, because that's a pretty shit thing to do. Don't you think Loki and Sylvie have gone through enough? In a nutshell, that Loki has an amazing story, the cast has great chemistry, and their performance is outstanding. And a huge portion of that is to be attributed to the writers, directors, and editors for making the show seem cohesive as it is. As well as one major thing that I like to point out is the series themes, as they are deeply rooted in mythological ones. You can see that they taken inspirations from the Bible as well as the hero's journey. This shows that the creator all have the same similar vision of the type of narrative that they wanted to tell. So Loki is a fantastic series that had me captivated from beginning to end. There was no way this could have been an easy task. It must be very challenging for the creators of the series to make a series this captivating while the script is 60% of being people talking, exposition, and sitting around. But it works. I was hooked. The series made Loki ask himself, what makes a Loki, and you know, this question makes him realizes that there is more to him than he himself realized. It shows the importance of self-realization, love, acceptance, as well as redemption. We all love a character that has a redemption, and we do get it here. And I feel that Loki that we follow here had more character development than 3 Thor movies that Loki has been in. And before I go any further, can I just say that Tom Hiddleston is an amazing actor who truly is passionate in playing Loki, and I guess he is aware that if he wants to stay relevant in the MCU, he must reinvent the Loki character. This series has allowed Tom to do this, and a list of the new cast certainly adds to the great chemistry and banter that the series has going. This series' strength lies in the fantastic dialogue carried by the cast performance. So the characters I find to be the most enjoyable are Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, a TV analyst, and he plays off really well with Loki's wit and banter. Next is Sofia Di Martino, who plays Sylvie, a Loki variant who was initially seen as the villain of the series, but as the series progressed, it becomes clear that Sylvie was also a victim of the TVA mission. So as the story develops, we are made to question who we can trust and if any of this character would betray Loki. So as a result, their interactions seems to be in conflict and contradictory. The dialogue has the ability to make the viewer feel both engaged and intrigued by what is going on around the characters. Take for an example the interaction between Loki and Mobius. As both of these men are very cunning and intelligent, the dialogue should seem smart enough. It must have been in a natural way. Even though many new terms and phrases are used, the show is not that difficult to follow. The show explain to us the technicalities in a very simple way that the audience can understand. Through the dialogue, the writer was able to create suspense, drama, and engage us as the audience. Loki's story is intimate and about self-rediscovery. Its ramifications for the rest of the MCU are huge. Like, bro, Sylvie is the catalyst of the multiverse. Like, can you imagine that? So, yeah, we should all say thank you to Sylvie for giving us the next 10 years of Marvel content. Having he who remains played by Jonathan Major is a brilliant plan by Marvel, because I wasn't expecting him to play a huge part in the MCU this early. Especially on a Disney Plus platform. So this shows how much confidence the showrunners have in their script and to tell massive stories. And by the end of the series, all these teams plays an important part of who our Loki has become, because Loki now realizes that by putting someone else beside himself could give him satisfaction that obtaining the chance to rule never could. So if people ask me how do I describe Loki as a series and why you should watch it, is that you got the basic standard Marvel banter wrapped up in a cohesive existential emotional journey towards realizing your true self, and this is complemented by the spectacles of a big budget Marvel film. Not to mention the technical elements like the production and the special effects are really critical in the success of a show, especially involving time travel. So in this case, Loki uses a lot of equipments from the 1970s and 1980s, and it adds the distinct vibe that we got when watching this show, and you can sense the eeriness while wandering the halls of the TVA. And oh, I didn't forget about the show's very excellent cinematography and color grading. The show has very much a vibe, an aesthetic that they wanted to convey, and it's very pleasing to watch. So it has great cinematography, trippy visuals sometimes, and even some quiet, more subtle camera work to reflect the characters, what the characters are thinking. And I think that that's a very good way to portray the narrative. And oh my god, the soundtrack, chef kiss, excellent. Natalie Holtz, I hope we're going to see her work more often in the MCU. I can't wait for that. Now let's address some of the complaints that people had with the series. And yeah, their opinion is as valid as mine, so I guess it's important for me to tell you about it also. Like, there are times when the show would grind to a halt, to give the characters some time to breathe and to reflect, but that could also be seen as a filler, and some of us is not into that, and people might say that is boring, but not for me. But yeah, also Loki is, some people say that Loki isn't the main character in the show. Sometimes the show would focus on Sylvie's revenge rather than Loki's personal character development. But for me, it's more intertwined. It's not as easy to say which one they would focus more. But yeah, I can see that some people might not be into that, because we're attracted to this series because of Loki, not Sylvie, right? And another thing that people point out is that this show is essentially a paid advertising for other future Marvel projects. And I get what you're telling, but I don't see that in a way. The only thing that they're setting up is Phase 4, and how do you go into Phase 4 without setting it up somewhere, somehow? And by including Loki into this, it makes the show crucial to watch. And yeah, I mean, I can see that it could potentially be seen as a advert for other Marvel projects, but how do you tell the story that you wanted to tell without first establishing it somewhere? The last thing that people complain is that the relationship between Loki and Sylvie, the romantic relationship between Loki and Sylvie is quite unnecessary. Although I personally ship them, but it is valid to point that out, that sometimes this show is not that subtle in showing their romantic relationship, and I'm fine with that. But you know, some people might not like that. It's fine. People has opinions. Yeah, I hope the next season will able to find a balance in satisfying what the fans want, as well what is best for the characters moving forward. And please let Sylvie and Loki hook up. That's all that I wanted. Now, what does Loki mean for the bigger MCU? Well, Sylvie basically caused the multiverse to branch, hence creating the next multiversal war. So I don't think we have seen the last of He Who Remains or his variants. So I guess he'll be playing a bigger part in the next coming Marvel movies. At the end of the series, we now have a change Loki, basically, who now knows his wrongdoing and is doing all his best to become the best version by helping others. And the series ended with Sylvie and Loki in two completely different places, so it's not hard to presume that Loki wants to find her soulmate again, as well and maybe to stop Kang this time, or the TVA, or whoever the villain might be for season 2. And also, where did Renslayer go? Who knows? And why didn't Mobius remember who Loki is when he arrived at the TVA? So we just have to hope that all these questions will be answered in a satisfying way. And yeah, I have faith with the writers. So my own personal opinion, but it would make more dramatic and thematic sense if Loki is the one who defeats Kang, since he's the one who discovers him. So yeah, Doctor Strange will definitely have a field day with what's going to happen. But for now, I'm just glad the MCU has reinvented itself, and there is a lot of possibilities moving forward. Yeah, I highly recommend to anyone to watch the series, and more to a Marvel fan. So yeah, I guess that's all that I really wanted to say regarding this series. I would give Loki a 9.5 out of 10. Yeah, it's really good. After this, I really wanted to rewatch it again. But yeah, if you like what you see here, please do consider liking and subscribing my channel, and it will mean a lot to me. So yeah, thanks for watching. Until next time, or should I say for all time, always. Bye.